Hi everyone, it's Alice, and today I've got some book recommendations for you because not only is it spooky season, it's also the season to get as cozy as possible. I love a good cozy book. I'm a little all over the place when it comes to what I like to read. Sometimes I want things to be really dark and messy, and then sometimes I just want a break from everything and I want to read something cozy that I can just get lost in. And I feel like in autumn in particular, it's so easy to get into these kinds of books because the vibes are just right. I do love getting curled up on the couch with just like some snacks, maybe a hot chocolate, and just a nice little read. So the ones that I have for you today are all books that I feel like you could do that with. We're going to start with 4 graphic novels actually, and the first 2, to no surprise to anyone, we have Garlic and the Vampire and Garlic and the Witch by Bree Paulsen. I talk about these books all the time. They're some of my favorite cozy autumnal books, and they are just perfect. The first book in the duology is Garlic and the Vampire, and in this one we meet our main character, Garlic, who is a very nervous and anxious little bulb, but she lives in a town of vegetable folk, and this town is overseen by a witch named Agnes, who is the one who brought them all to life. And Garlic is happy there, even though she struggles a little bit. And then everyone gets thrown into a panic when a vampire moves into the neighborhood, and they decide someone needs to go check this out because that's obviously a little bit scary. And they decide that Garlic is the perfect person to go because she has like a natural immune system because she's Garlic. And despite her being a very nervous person, she decides to go on this little adventure. So she goes to confront the vampire. In Garlic and the Witch, we follow the same little protagonist, and we meet her after the events of the first book. And in this one, she also has to go on another kind of adventure. She has to go to this magical market, and the story is about that, and also this change, shall we say, that she's going through. These books are very sweet and charming. They're not particularly complicated, and it's not like the most original story that you've ever read, probably, but it's very, very sweet and wholesome, and I love the art style in here. Especially in the first book, we have a very autumnal color palette, and I just think these books are a nice little break from everything else. It's like so wholesome and delightful, and it's just very, very sweet. And I can't imagine anyone reading this book and not loving this little Garlic person because she's so cute. The next graphic novel I have also has a very autumnal color palette. It's Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell and Erin Hicks. And this one is about these 2 friends who are, like, through their high school years, they've worked every year at this pumpkin patch. And it's their final year together before they go off to college, so it's sort of a time of change. And it's their last shift together. And the story is all about them basically deciding to go on an adventure exploring this pumpkin patch on their last shift. One of them is in sort of pursuit of this cute girl that he's been trying to talk to ever since he saw her, like, for years. And this girl basically wants to go around the pumpkin patch just eating all the snacks that she can find, which, at least to me, is very relatable and an excellent goal. This is also very sweet. It's heartwarming and charming and has a lot of autumnal colors in it, which I love. And a thing that I really like about this book is that at its core, it's about a friendship. And I love books about friendship. And this is just a nice little treat to read, and I just love the characters in here. It's very charming and wholesome, and I love it. The last graphic novel I have is another one of my favorites. It's kind of big. It's The 100 Nights of Hero by Isabel Greenberg, and I feel like any graphic novel by this author is such a treat to read. This one is like a fantasy graphic novel, and it's set in a medieval world where this horrible man makes a wager with one of his friends that if the friend can seduce the man's wife within 100 days, he can get the wife and the castle, which is obviously a little problematic. What none of the men know, though, is that the wife is actually in love with her maid, and the story is all about the maid and the wife coming together and deciding to distract this guy by telling him all of these stories. And so the book is sort of layered. So we get the story of this wager and this horrible man and the wife and the maid, but we also get the stories that they tell the guy. And this is just a real treat to read. The art is kind of different, but I actually really like it. And once you read this book, I feel like the art makes sense with like the vibe of the story. I love this one. It's very clever, and I love how everything ties together in the end. And it's just really, really nice. I love all of Isabel Greenberg's books. I think you could read any of them. She also has one that's about like the Brontes, which is really good. But yeah, I think this might be my favorite, and I feel like it's perfect for fall because it's just a lovely book to get lost in. Moving on to novels, we have Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett, which you may have heard of because it's just a very popular book, or you may have heard of it because I talk about this book all the time. This whole trilogy actually is just like the perfect blend of coziness and magic and just a little bit of darkness. In this book, we meet a Cambridge professor who specializes in fae and fairy lore, and the story is all about her going on this field trip, and she goes to this little, very remote place, and there's this little village, and this professor is very, very intelligent, but she's not great with people, so she manages to insult the whole town like almost the minute she gets there. And although she's gonna do her own research, obviously this creates some tension and some problems. But luckily slash unluckily, depending on who you ask, her academic rival slash kind of friend decides to join her on this field trip without even asking her. So he just shows up. And everybody loves him. He's very charming, so he helps sort of smooth things over. And the story is all about them and them getting closer and closer to the most reclusive of the fairies, the hidden ones. And this takes them on quite an adventure. I feel like these books are just fun and cozy. I love the fantasy elements and like the fairies and fae, like that whole world that we get to see in here is just excellent and I love it so much. And there's even a little bit of romance in here, which I'm actually quite into, which is saying something because usually I'm not. Then we have another favorite of mine. It's Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher, which again is fantasy with a little bit of horror to it, but I would say that the horror is like, it's there, but the book in general is sort of on the lighter side of things. This follows a woman who was raised in a convent, and she has to go on a quest to save her sister. Her sister is married to this prince who happens to be really abusive, and this prince has actually already maybe caused the death of another one of the main character's sisters, and so she decides to go and help her sister, but she needs help, so she enlists the help of this grave witch who walks around with a staff with a chicken on top of it that happens to be possessed by a demon, which I feel like gives you a pretty good idea of the vibe of this book. And the grave witch decides to help, and along the way they're also joined by this guard and also a very reluctant fairy godmother who has some very interesting powers, and off they go on this quest to save the sister from this tyrannical man. It's definitely a whimsical adventure and it has quite the mix of quirky characters, but I just loved this so much. It was so much fun to read, and the chicken in here really does it for me. Like, I think about that chicken all the time. There's something so funny about it to me, and just the mental image of this witch walking around with this chicken is just like, it makes me so happy. We then have some more witches with the House Witch, and this one is set in a fantasy kingdom where we meet the new royal chef who has just started working in the royal castle, and he's quite a mysterious character at the beginning of the book. We don't really know a lot about him, and he also is a little bit like, he doesn't get along with everyone and he sort of pushes everyone away and sort of rubs everyone the wrong way. So when he gets there and he takes up this position, it's not like super great right away. Throughout the story though, he eventually warms up and he starts like making some friends and taking part in the daily activities of the castle. There's a little bit of like political intrigue in here, there's a little bit of romance, and this is just a very wholesome book. It's kind of like slice of life in a way. We're just getting these different scenes from these different characters, and it's just very sweet and wholesome. There's a lot of cooking in this book and a lot of food and quite a lot of magic. I really enjoyed this one. It felt very like easy to get into and read, and there is I don't know how many books there are in this series. I have the second one, and I really want to read it. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I feel like the vibe of the cover really gives off like the vibe of how the book feels to read. Then we have another one that I mention all the time because again, it's one of my favorites. It's Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. And if you're into cozy fantasy, you will have probably heard of this one. It follows a battle-weary orc who is ready to retire, and she has a dream of starting a coffee shop in this particular city. And the only challenge, well, not the only challenge, but a big challenge is that no one knows what coffee is in this place. So she has to like introduce it to the people. I think one of the characters in here refers to it as like bean water at some point, which is, that tells you how much they know about coffee. But the story is all about her opening this coffee shop and finding friends and community in a way that she hadn't dreamed of. I mention this every time I talk about this book, but I think everyone should read this book just to meet this one particular side character who is a ratkin baker who is the sweetest creature ever. I think about him all the time, like weekly. I think about little Thimble. He's like in the illustration down here, you probably can't see very well, but he's very sweet and he just wants to bake and he's kind of stressed, but he makes the best cinnamon buns and oh, I just love him so much. I like, if I could take a character out of a book and into the real world, I would choose Thimble because he is the cutest. Next, we have another witchy one. It's The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandanna. And this one is set in Britain where we meet a woman who, like all other witches, they have decided not to like gather or spend a lot of time together because they don't want to be exposed, so they're all keeping their magic hidden. And our main character is very lonely because of that, and she moves around a lot because of it. And the story starts off with her being very lonely and then getting this unexpected letter asking her to a place called Nowhere House and asking for her help to train these three young witches. And she decides to go, and the story is all about what happens when she gets there and her training these witches and also meeting and getting to know the people who take care of these witches. It's very much a story of like found family, and it's very cozy and heartwarming. Maybe not the most original, but it's very sweet, and all of the magic in it and stuff is really nice, and it's just a very cozy, nice little read. And there is a little smidge of romance in it as well. Then we have more fairies with The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making by Catherynne and Valente, which is quite the title. And this one follows a girl, I think she's 11 or 12 when we meet her, and one day she is met by a wind in her kitchen who tells her that they need her help in Fairyland because there is this evil Marquess there who is making trouble for everyone, and our main character is the only one who can retrieve this talisman from the enchanted woods. So she needs to go there and help out. If that doesn't sound magical, I don't know what does. This is a very fun and fantastical adventure though, and it's kind of like a mix between The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland. And even though this is geared towards younger readers, I read it as an adult and I think it's great. Like, it's so fun and cozy, and there are some illustrations in this book as well that just add a little bit to it, and it's the first in a series. I can't remember how many books there are, but I think I've read them all. And it's just like a fun magical adventure with a lot of like magical creatures in it. Second to last, we have even more witches with In the Company of Witches by Auralee Wallace. And this is like a mix of a cozy mystery and a cozy fantasy all together. It follows a witch who is from a long line of witches, and she lives with her aunts. And she's kind of struggling with her life and her magic actually because her husband has passed away, and since then her magic hasn't been quite there. And then someone is murdered in her aunt's bed and breakfast where they all live together, and the police think that one of the aunts had something to do with it, so the main character gets involved to try to figure out what actually happened. And it's so like cozy, and the mystery really isn't that serious even though someone got murdered, and there are some fantastical elements, and how it all comes together is just so good. I really liked how the book is about solving this mystery, of course, but it's also about the main character grappling with her grief and her magic, and I just really enjoyed it. It's a very enjoyable read. I also really like the town this is set in. It feels very autumnal. It's set during autumn, and it's just so cozy, and like it's the perfect book to read on the couch with like a blanket when it's a little bit cold. Lastly, we have a historical fiction mystery. It's The Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie by Alan Bradley. This is set in the 1950s, and we meet our main character who is 11 years old. Her name is Flavia. She's really interested in chemistry and poisons, which, like, that's my girl. And the story is all about what happens when a man is found dead in their cucumber patch outside their house, and our main character decides that she's gonna solve the mystery before the police does, because that's just the kind of girl she is. I think the main character in here is definitely the star of the show. Reading her perspective is so much fun and very interesting, and this is just a cozy, nice little mystery book. It actually, now that I'm talking about it, reminds me that I need to read the other books in the series. I've only read this first one, but I have another two already on my shelves, and I feel like these books are kind of perfect for autumn. I should not be putting any more books on my autumn TBR, but I feel like maybe I can sneak another one in there. That was the last book that I had for you today, though. Now, I would love to know if you have any cozy book recommendations that are perfect for this season. I'm sure both me and everybody else would love to read all about it in the comments. I feel like I really need some more cozy book recommendations, so if you have any, let me know. And yeah, as always, thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon. Bye!